All right, can everybody see my screen? All right, thank you everyone. So hello and welcome to today's We Speak on Barriers to Breakthroughs, Overcoming the Gender Financing Gap. So some reminders, maybe kindly request everyone to rename themselves to their nickname, dash your company and your pronouns. Second, kindly keep your microphone on mute if you're not speaking. And third, if you have any technical difficulties, message Aliana from the Vilgar PH in the chat box. So I'm happy to see you all here today, and a big shout out as well to those watching from the Vilgro Philippines live stream on our Facebook page. We're so happy you could join us, and nice to meet you all. My name is Shar. I'm from the New Shoe Network team. I also want to say a warm welcome to those who are just new to the New Shoe Network. And those who are joining, We Speak for the first time. So to give a brief background, We Speak is one of the many activities we've designed for women entrepreneurs to give them a voice in highlighting their entrepreneurial and personal journey. Yes. About Nushu, we are an access to finance platform that aims to address the gender gap. We offer this through community coaching and capital, and our end mission is to help every woman entrepreneur succeed on their own terms across the South and Southeast Asia. So some of the activities that we offer are networking events for the community as well as for investors. We also offer closed-door pitch training sessions and a self-paced curriculum that's accessible and free. And we have many learning resources that women entrepreneurs can access on the topics of business, leadership, and gender. On our digital platform, you're also able to see the funder map, as well as accelerator programs that we offer throughout the year. About the community, so we have, as mentioned, a lot going on. Our next activity for the community is our very first Pride Happy Hours. This is a collaboration event with Merkel and We Work Philippines, happening on June 8th at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. at We Work RCBC Plaza Makati. So Vilgar Philippines is a gender smart incubator and accelerator. So this Pride Month, we're really trying to be more intentional about our steps towards inclusivity, towards the LGBTQ community. And this Pride Happy Hours is really a space for us to learn from these communities and learn from how we can foster a safe space and really foster collaboration and making more opportunities for diversity and inclusion. Before we begin, may we all take a photo for the session today as a memory. If you could kindly turn on your cameras, that would be great. My colleague Aliana will be giving the go signal. So whenever you're ready, Aliana. Okay. All right. Thank you, Aliana. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to Priya Thachadi, co-founder of Vilgro Philippines, to get this session going. I'd also like to introduce our guests today, David Pangan from inBEST Ventures and Virginia Andrada from JustGoLowCarb. To know more about them, I pass the floor to Priya Thachadi.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thanks, Shar. And good evening to everybody who's joined us here and on our live stream as well. And a huge thank you to both David and Jeannie for joining us today in this cozy chat that we're about to embark upon. But thank you so much for being here and joining We Speak. It's really intimate conversations to share our, our personal journeys, our insights. And today we really want to talk about something that I think the three of us have intersected upon many times, which is really investing in and supporting women-led businesses. Just for the audience, both Dave and I are part of the Gender and Impact Investment Council, a council of investors and other practitioners that we set up together recently. And, we've been collaborating a lot around supporting women entrepreneurs. And Jeannie is someone who is also in our orbit and would love to hear more about how they've collaborated as well in the past. So Dave, Jeannie, before we dive into this topic, it would be wonderful if you can just share a little bit about what you do. So maybe, Jeannie, we'll start with you. If you can share a little bit about, JustGoLowCarb and sort of where you are in your journey as an entrepreneur.
Hi, good evening to everyone, and thanks, Priya, for having me here. It's my privilege to share my journey with your members. Just a little background, perhaps. I've been an entrepreneur for, I think, more than 30 years. 20 years. I'm not that old. So, but all this time, I really enjoyed being an entrepreneur. The excitement, the stress, and all that is all part of the journey. And but my latest, and I think this is maybe my last biggest company, would be JustGoLowCarb, because this is the closest to my heart. Because maybe later I can share a little bit of why it's so personal to me, this company in particular. Yeah. Thank you.
Super. Over to you, Dave. A little bit about you and inBEST.
Yeah, thanks, Priya, and happy to be here, happy to share. I'm David. I'm the managing partner for inBEST Ventures. So inBEST Ventures is a gender-lens investor focused on providing growth capital for women-owned and women-led SMEs here in the Philippines. We're the first institution to formalize gender-lens investing here in the Philippines. And we started, let's say, in Q4 of 2020 till 2021. And since then, we've supported now 28 companies thus far. So composed of about 35 transactions. Some of them do second tranches, other deals, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I'm quite excited to be here to share what we do, to impart some learnings as well. And glad to be invited.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you. And I hope we can, dive a little bit into your experiences, working in this space. But maybe just for context, over the last few months, as part of Newsha Network and the work that we do as an incubator at Will Grow, we have sort of embarked on this little bit of a data collection, a little bit of insight gathering exercise through a research report, which will be published next month. So I just wanted to share a few sort of insights that we gathered, both mostly from the women entrepreneur side, but also from investors, and wanted to get your thoughts on it. So one of the big things that actually came out, first of all, I have to say it was very difficult to collect the data. One of the things that I did recognize, and then which we will improve next time, is that even when we ask questions like how much capital have you raised, or how much money has been put into your business, people are answering varied type of answers. One is, how much did you start with? How much did you raise along the way? So there is definitely a relationship with the capital that I think is still evolving as we are in a young ecosystem, and there's not a lot of information and transparency around transactions and how entrepreneurs are raising capital, how investors are looking at these investments. So some very interesting insights that actually came about, and a lot of challenges that we faced. But one or two of the things I think might be interesting for you. One is that many of we had a data set of about 100 plus women entrepreneurs, mostly I would say in the small, in the SME, the small sort of enterprises, though they were still, but definitely all of them looking to grow their business. And one of the big pieces that sort of came out when the question of, how much capital are you looking to raise, most were looking for actually fairly smaller ticket sizes, so less than between 100 to 500,000 pesos. And then over the next 2 years, they were hoping that that would go up to a few million pesos. So, but usually when we talk about, capital raise, a lot of the conversation is, of course, led by equity investment deals. And we are talking a lot around venture capital, which are bigger sort of ticket sizes, right? Is mostly what we hear of in the news and in sort of the glamour side of the startup ecosystem. So I'll start with you, Dave. So from, having looked at a lot of SMEs, where are you seeing sort of, the needs of growing, let's say growing small businesses? What type of tickets do you do? But also what are you seeing as needs from those you are looking at as well?
Thanks, Priya. I think when we first started Invest, we were very much doing exactly what Priya was saying. So you're more typical, let's say, venture capital, larger transactions, doing a minimum of 5 million pesos up to 15 million pesos. Targeted at long-term investment, doing 3 to 7 years, and then with equity investment, hybrid, mezzanine, so all of these kind of investing jargon that I think what we've come to terms with is that maybe very nascent here in the Philippines, and it's not something that, let's say, you go out on a first date or a relationship with SMEs, that's the first thing you say, right? That's like going on the first date and saying, will you marry me, right? So gotta play it cool. Gotta play it cool a little bit. So what we did as an actual realization of that is that in 2021 we launched what we call the Business Acceleration Facility. So it's designed specifically to tailor fit the needs of growing SMEs, and we've identified specific niches where they exist, right? So I think if you look at the whole Philippine ecosystem, you have, actually a lot of the microfinance institutions that are already lending to women, but they have a bottleneck at about 300,000 pesos and above. So this is the same with rural banks. 300,000 is usually the cutoff and nothing more than that. So after 300,000, then you see uh, more formal business relationships with banks. But then we know how difficult it is to get a loan for the bank with all of the requirements that they're asking. And so we've designed this business acceleration facility to exist above the 300,000 kind of space barrier that is with MFIs. And so, and we've increased it. So we're actually at a minimum ticket of 1 million pesos all the way to 4 million pesos. So basically they're targeted for those that have tried and borrowed from microfinance and have done a few cycles, and then suddenly they're not able to borrow enough to be able to go right along beside their business in terms of fueling the working capital needs, expansion needs, growth needs, et cetera, et cetera. And so really it's now targeted for that gap between transitioning from a micro entrepreneur and becoming a small enterprise. And then the longer term investment is then more focused on transitioning again from being small to medium. So that's really where we find the bottleneck, and that's where we find women entrepreneurs being stuck in terms of accessing additional capital for growth.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you made on the kind of, across the journey of the venture itself or the enterprise that graduating. And you're absolutely right. When we look at the data, microfinance is overwhelmingly funding, women. And there is, there's definitely enough data to show good payers and, that's preferred. But then in the next stage is where we see an issue. And so maybe to you, Jeannie, what another interesting thing that came out in the research is that a lot of women entrepreneurs, if they're not accessing grants, the next thing that they are doing is either borrowing from family and friends, so informally, not from sort of money lenders, but really from their own personal networks, which was highly preferred, or they're taking a personal loan or using their credit cards for sort of immediate working capital needs. So you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. So what has your relationship been with external capital? How have you kind of navigated and decided when to take, what kind of financing? And I know it's not an easy question to answer, but maybe you can share what you've done personally.
Okay, first of all, it's funny because I'm one of the first, I think, David, the recipients of inBEST. as with your BFF your loaning facility, and it was my very first time to actually access a formal financial institution for, because as even as an entrepreneur, I was just simply bootstrapping, just earning, and then turning it around, the money and all that, because I was always afraid of risk. Taking the risk to borrow money was something that was not ingrained in me. I was always very careful. So all along, my husband and I have always been doing that. So when the opportunity, it was during the pandemic, funny enough, that was in 2020, right, David, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And I met David through Priya's We Rise program, the Pitch Perfect. So then it actually opened up a whole new world to me, realizing that there's actually groups that will lend money to companies, and it doesn't have to be something that you do it alone. So it was but the adjustment to me took quite some time, and David's very familiar with this, because there were a lot of things that I was quite used being a solo entrepreneur, used to doing it on my own, and I didn't want people looking over my shoulder like, hey, what's going on? Although they weren't intrusive at all. It was more of, hey, of course there's some due diligence and KPIs that I had to meet, but at the end of the day, although we're already done this year, right, David, we're finished with our loan. I took an 18-month loan facility, or what do you call that, David, again? Pardon me.
Uh, yeah, loan facilities. Okay.
Yeah, loan
VAF.
facility.
Yeah.
Yeah, VAF, that one. That was 18 months. So, and I was able to pay it completely. And that's one thing that was, I never defaulted. So that was something that was, I realized that it's really possible without, like I mentioned, it opened up a whole new opportunity for me, and a whole new world. Although right now I was able to raise more funds, but it's still with friends and family. I went back to the friends and family route simply because they just want to invest. So it's not something that I want to pass up. And then yeah, so that's basically my journey with regards to gaining capital, accessing.
Oh, nice. I mean, first, congratulations on, repaying the loan and moving to kind of your
Thank you.
next, which is really okay, right? Because now you're looking at it as an investment and probably equity into the business, which is kind of your next stage of building or growing your business. But you touched on something very, very interesting, which is also something that came out in the research, is really the mindset. And so a lot of the women entrepreneurs across the research, many of them, a majority of them did actually refer to that. And Dave, I just wanted to come to you because this was the biggest fear they said was that, I don't know if I can repay, or I'm afraid like what, a lot of things could go wrong if I took a loan. So this is, specifically in reference to all financing, but especially the loan, right? Which was it was quite common, and we saw that as a response of, what would hold you back from accessing financing? It is really that I'm not ready because I don't know, the cycle of repayments and things like that. So that would seem to be a predominant sort of a fear. And we, over the last 2 years, we've held, and I think Jeannie and Dave, you've been part of many of the dialogues and stakeholder dialogues that we've organized over the last few years. And this continues to be sort of a mindset, especially around sort of loans, and from a lot of where the businesses are at, especially at that small, ready to grow, many of them actually do need working capital. They need, to really just finance some things, and they have the ability to repay, but there is something holding them back. So Dave, how have you managed to do these 35 transactions? What are you seeing? Or, is there a certain, I find myself trying to convince a lot of our women entrepreneurs that they need external financing and they're ready for it. And sometimes there is definitely a risk appetite, because also this is the first time they might be taking that external financing. So how have you been addressing it? And, what do you see differently in those who have taken the loans from you?
I think the first premise that we kind of had to jump over is that we don't force anyone who doesn't want it, right? I think even if we think the person can already access financing, but if they can't make peace with the risk that they are taking, then it is still, at least on my perspective, not advisable. So I think there is a certain level of education needs to happen. There needs to be understanding about good debt and bad debt. I think when we speak to women entrepreneurs, and it's about growing their business, it is about doing something that they've already been doing and they're comfortable with, since for fueling growth, and just scaling that up, and bringing some level of economies of scale to it, right? So, I'm already selling 100 soaps, and I know that I have a 20% margin on it. And if I take a financing cost that charges me 1%, I know I can take that cost, right? Because and then I can do volumes of that transaction because now I have additional capital to do it. So for me, those are the most optimal women to support, just because they have a clear understanding of their business, the impact of the loan to them, and the risk that they are taking as well. So I think there needs to be a certain level of understanding, a certain level of peace as well for the person that's taking the risk, that they are comfortable taking it, and that good or bad, because it can go either way, right? That's why you're an entrepreneur, you're taking a risk. You're seeing something in the market that no one else is seeing, and that's why you're deciding to really take hold of that opportunity. It can play either way, and you should be able to accept both sides of the equation, right? The growth and the challenge, if it doesn't pan out.
Absolutely. So it's really believing and understanding your business well enough to know that it can accommodate that interest rate, but also what you can do with that capital to really kind of go to the next level of scaling up your business. So Jeannie, you just shared that you completed sort of this loan cycle with inBEST. So how was it? So because you were one of those people who were definitely, I remember after your first meeting with Dave, where he was like, after that pitch perfect, you messaged me to say, hey, like this is an opportunity with inBEST. Like, I don't know if I should do this, but I feel like I do, the money can really help me. And I remember that discussion, and it took you a while to get to that. And I remember very clearly one of the things that you mentioned, and thank you for, saying it out loud. It's like, oh, I've actually never shown my books to anybody. It's just been me managing all of these, so many things, including the finance. So what did it mean for you then to, take on that and, provide like regular updates? How did you find that it helped you probably, be disciplined, and it kind of helped you go after some of those pieces? And how did you make that adjustment as an entrepreneur?
Okay, I guess, Priya, I want to take it from what David said a while ago. You have to be comfortable. If you're going to take on something like this, you have to be comfortable. And I guess in retrospect, I wasn't that comfortable when I went on this journey because of like I mentioned to you, I never opened up my books and my business to anyone aside from my husband or my accountant. So it was a struggle. Yeah, it really was something that I had to adjust to, and I was honestly, and I know David can say that I wasn't really the best loaning because I wasn't very very good at reporting. I used to in the beginning I was, and then I had so many things, as an entrepreneur, especially if you're doing everything yourself, like you edit things, you post your own social media stuff, and you do your own packaging. Sometimes the financial side takes a back seat, which is not good. I'm saying it out loud right now, that you really have to know your numbers. That's one thing that I really learned from inBEST. That's something that you have to. Although I know in the past I've been earning as an entrepreneur, else I would have given up. But really knowing it to the detail, and the important thing of keeping the record, so that when I do raise funds, and pretty soon I want to go around of raising funds again, because of our future plans. So that's something that the discipline I had to really force myself. So the comfort level was very important. I guess before you even dive into it, I should have been more comfortable. So I was more ready and more able to provide what mabait lang, or sorry, inBEST was just a kind finance group that really understood my struggle, especially it was pandemic at that time. So there are many, many challenges during that time. So, but again, I think first of all, you have to really know where you're going with your business. And one thing I guess that I realized that when you do take on a loan, don't expect it like, of course, that you have to make sure that you will be able to repay the interest and the principal at the end of the day. But um, it's not something that it's the only thing, the only reason that you're doing your business, like, oh, I have something to pay, I have something to pay, because that becomes like a nightmare every night, like, oh no, I'm in debt or something like that. You have to think that it's something that will make you grow. It is something that will get you to phase two. That's why your short-term, mid-term, long-term goals are so important in your KPIs. Because once you've the first taken this loan, now, like I said, I already accessed the second round of financing. I'm more confident now because I know I've already reached my first phase. And now I can do this second phase without being afraid that I can't sleep at night thinking that I have a loan. And I think most women, especially maybe my age, I don't know, my generation are more averse to taking on formal loans than maybe younger women. I don't know, Priya, you would know the data on that. But
Yeah, interesting. We will add the age lens and see, but I think predominantly we did see that there was definitely a hesitation, though many did say that in the next sort of they do still need the financing to grow, and they can clearly see that it's holding them back, not having that capital, whether it's to buy the inventory, whether it's the business or their customers taking like 90 days, 100 days to pay them, or whether it's actually hiring the right people to fulfill the demand that's really knocking at your door. So I think the need is definitely there. So I think definitely one is sort of, this mindset issue and a little bit of a fear around sort of loans and repaying that's there. But another issue that, was also raised, Dave, was the kind of worry about the whole process and documentation and compliance and all of that's needed to actually access financing. And this also came up quite a lot. And I think there were two things that sort of really stood out. One is that even before going through the process, there is a bit of fear that, okay, it's not going to be easy because maybe I can't actually comply with all the requirements, number one. Number two, that it actually takes very long. And I think this is a small startup ecosystem. So of course, bad news travels very fast. And maybe in the past, people have had some bad experiences. And so the whole sort of community kind of finds out, everybody's a little bit worried. So what would you say from a perspective of documentation compliance? What should women entrepreneurs expect if they're going to access, in your case, a loan? What are some things to maybe prepare before even you start getting to the phase of fundraising? Because one of the struggles that even we've had recently is that you do wait on a lot of the documentation that you do ask, and then 1 month goes by, 2 months goes by, then it becomes frustrating, for everybody because the money is really needed urgently. So what would you say from the compliance perspective? And then from the other side, how you as a investor, what is your sort of timeline to close a deal, and how do you try to manage these two pieces?
So I think, especially in the MSME sector that we're working with, a lot of them access predatory capital because predatory capital gives them the capital when they need it, instead of when it can be disbursed. And so they're not, they're okay to pay the 20% per month charges because, maybe they can apply for something cheaper, but then it wouldn't be when they needed it, right? And so we're trying to strike a balance between, how long the bank takes and, maybe immediate disbursement, which are typical for, let's say, predatory lending. And so on average, we've done 2 weeks in terms of the fastest, and then up to, let's say, 2-3 months at the longest. And typically that's held up because of bottlenecks in documentation that aren't able to be provided by the borrower. So um, but we've also kind of, and it's a continuous process, right? We're continuously finding ways to shorten this process. And I think one of the innovations that we've done is that we understand that women entrepreneurs in this time of their business, given where they are, maybe their documentations are not that robust. Maybe they're transitioning from being a sole entrepreneur and starting to formalize, working with others or maybe a corporation. And it is a transitory period, right? Because we're looking at those specific niches. And I think one of the innovations that we have is that being seasoned investors and finance personnel, we've actually taken a lot of weight into consideration in terms of discussing and having a dialogue with entrepreneurs to see and to verify if they understand their business, if they are in tune with what's happening with their business, right? And I think we put a lot of weight on the entrepreneurial capacity of the entrepreneur, and understanding the impact of what they are borrowing or what they are loaning and what it can do for their business, right? So even more so than you submitting us, all of these documents, which are still necessary, but we're trying to simplify it and dumb it down. Um, your let's say your narrative and how you present your business has a bigger impact to us, right? And I think that's where the main difference between, let's say, a bank, where they will just look solely at the documentation that you're able to produce and nothing else. And I think they're not able to capture the story, and be able to capture, let's say, the tenacity, the passion, the the entrepreneurial mind of the entrepreneur that's trying to access additional capital. And then maybe piggybacking off what Jeannie has said as well a while ago. You know, after the due diligence, I think application is easy. Everyone knows the information. They know how much they want. The due diligence is the one that takes a lot of time because we have to understand your business. And of course, the less documents you have, the more we need to talk first, understand, what because you're the expert in it, right? And you have your plans. And we're a third party trying to understand. And then after disbursement, I think it's also that relationship building that comes after it, right? Because we really see our women entrepreneurs as partners in the business. So we've had times where they've called us and they've told us, hey, there's some difficulties in collections, there's some difficulties in payment, and we want to be able to, let's say, tailor fit the product based on their needs, good or bad problems. So I think a certain level of being comfortable with having to be transparent, sharing both good news and bad news, is helpful for us to be able to determine how we can help you, right? And I think that's where it's different from the bank. Like, you borrow from a bank, you have to repay by a certain date. You're not able to pay. You get 1, 2, 3 strikes, and then your collection notice, and then suddenly everything is going haywire, right? So I think we're open to dialogue. We can talk. We understand the pain points, and we can work around it.
Yeah, thanks. That really kind of, also speaks to how, as sort of a non-banking financial institution, we are able to tailor the financial products for the entrepreneurs. And I think that is one of the pieces that also came out, I think, in the research, is that where, traditionally, where some of the products that are more visible also are quite stringent in their approach and the way they are structured, that a lot of the early stage, especially the small and growing businesses, really need more tailored products. So that was a great example to hear you sort of describe how you are managing to sort of adapt to what the needs of the business and the entrepreneur is. So now I see that we are sort of really burning through time. So I do want to share to the audience, if you do have any questions, do put it in chat. To everybody who's watching and joining us on the Facebook live stream as well, do, put it in chat, and we'll, post that to both Jeannie and Dave. So Jeannie, one more question before we take some audience questions to you. So, you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. And now, very happy to see that, you access this financing. You've been sort of on a growth path. You've also, overcome a lot of personal health and other challenges. So you did mention that you are now at the path where you're raising more, financing, whether it's a friends and family round, you're taking some investment capital. So how did you come to that decision? What kind of makes you confident of where your business model is, that, you can now, diversify your model, you can kind of expand. So what is that point that you get to of that confidence to say, okay, I do have my product market fit, I know what I'm doing, and I'm ready to scale it up?
I guess, Priya, the most obvious, first of all, is the numbers. When you see your numbers growing, that's again, like I mentioned a while ago, the discipline of really knowing, are you really earning from not earning? So that was when I saw the numbers and also the response of the market to what we're doing. We're a very niche market. We have our products are not for everyone, but actually what we saw that even if we're niche, our market we know how to reach and talk to our market. That's why they buy our products regardless of whatever the cost may be. But that was definitely the confidence level of why I decided to move forward with this. And then not only that, aside from the numbers, it is really the community that was opened up to me. And I just wanted to add this to what David was saying a while ago. With the formal lending institutions like banks, perhaps they won't really take care of you or open up doors for you. But through inBEST, there were many doors that was open to me. Whether it was a community of women that just networking with them, or just exposure for various events. That was very important, and I think that's something that women should consider whenever they do get any financial outside help for capital, because you have to look at the institution that's lending to you, and it's not just about their ability to give you the money, but where will this lead, where will this go? So that was one, and because of that, the confidence that added to my confidence as well in growing the company, when I saw that the community, that there were really people there who wanted my products or who wanted to help me, who believe in what I was doing. And that was very, very important, especially because I guess, like you said, Pia, you'll add the age factor, because I did learn this during one of your events with women, the leadership event that I went through with Nushu Network. There are many my age, almost 50, and a lot of us are not that confident anymore because we're older, less risk takers, and we're wearing many hats. But having a community to support you really, really boosts your confidence level, and that was what made me move forward with a lot of plans with our business right now.
Maybe just to refute, your products are not niche. I think Jeannie's product, even though they're targeted for niche customers, it's so good that I think even when I was not in a low carb diet, I would eat it because it's just good.
Thank you, David.
not because it was healthy.
We can all enjoy it, whether you
Yeah.
low carb or not.
The health side is just the added benefit.
True.
Yeah, but that's a beautiful point, Jeannie. I think actually building that network, having that support community is so critical. Not only to kind of see who's succeeding and what we can learn from them, but also to learn, how people dealt with their downs. And I think, I remember in the leadership program that you were talking about, the circle, there was a lot of deep dive and reflecting on, your personal leadership challenges as well. And I do remember the circle and sort of what each one's experience really kind of helped us learn from each other. So, yeah.
Not for the faint-hearted. You have to be open.
Absolutely. And which is, I think, a great point. And I think given where we are as an ecosystem where, things are still evolving, being able to share these experiences and learning from each other, and because somebody else probably has already been through this, this challenge that you may have. So I think that's really the power of community is should not be understated, and great to see so many, people in the audience and entrepreneurs here, to sort of shout out and support each other. So thank you for being here and being part of the community. So, we have about, 5-10 minutes left. I just wanted to, again, see if there are any questions. Please do put it in the chat. Okay, there's a question for Dave. Dave, the question is, are there any specific industries you look at when you think of, reaching many women entrepreneurs? Because Dave, maybe you can speak a little bit of, you're also a gender lens fund or a facility. You're looking specifically to, support women-led SMEs. But do you also have an industry sort of a thesis? How do you select, who has the potential to grow?
So with inBEST, we don't have specific industries that we support. Our main criteria is that it's women-owned, meaning it's at least 51% owned by women, whether that's an individual or a group of women, or women-led, meaning that's at least 20% women-owned, at least one decision maker that is female, and if it's a corporation, then 30% of that of the board is female. So that's our main qualifier, since we are gender lens investors catering specifically for women entrepreneurs here in the Philippines. But we do have some sectors where we do see a lot of women, and interestingly, in the let's say in food and in agriculture, that makes up about 60% of our current portfolio, because I think we've supported women farmers, traders, a whole gamut of different types of women within that food and agriculture industry. And on the flip side of that, traffic and safety tech, student financing, poultry harvesting. So it's really, within the whole, let's say industry wide and also nationwide, right? So we've supported entrepreneurs as far as Isabela, and as far south as General Santos, right, and everything in between. And so, and we're actually excited because we're seeing a lot of growth in Mindanao, especially in Davao, in Gensan. So, I think our main problem right now is that we actually don't have enough capital to be able to disburse to everyone who's applying to us. And that's a problem that we're trying to solve by also fundraising on our end, and then eventually tapping into wholesale lenders, banking institutions here in the Philippines that we're able to tap into and redisperse the capital back to women entrepreneurs. But so as of right now, really we're having a hard time fulfilling everyone's demand for additional capital, which is a good problem, but still a problem, right? We're being validated by the market, but it is our problem to be able to supply the market with the products and services we are offering. So yeah, so across all industries, nationwide, and then and if you're not sure, we're cheap state. Let's talk. Happy to chat, and you can pick my brain, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. That's really great to hear, Dave, also that, that there is a great pipeline that is actually looking for this financing, because one of the things that a lot of, it always goes to saying, oh, where is the pipeline of women-led businesses who want to raise money? But I think from your experiences, because you're able to tailor, you're doing sort of interesting ticket sizes where there aren't so many players who are focusing, there's definitely an unmet need from women-owned and women-led businesses that are looking to raise capital. And I think, that's really the big sort of headline from our discussion today, that, it is there, but the capital is probably not where a lot of women entrepreneurs are at today in the market. And that's what we really need to change. And sometimes a lot of the conversation seems to be, okay, where do women entrepreneurs need to move to, or how do they change and grow? And get better ready for different types of capital, but there is already a need where they're at. So that's really great to hear. And, good luck with you to fundraise more and deploy more capital so we can, reach more women entrepreneurs. And we're all with you in that journey. So Jeannie, maybe, I do know that definitely I can see a few of our entrepreneurs in the audience and those who are watching live, maybe at the point where you were at, a year ago, where they are contemplating taking some external financing, wondering whether, a loan is for them, or, how all these questions, that doubts that you had, right? Whether, the investor is going to come and want to run my company, or will be asking me too many questions. All these doubts that we tend to have, especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, or this is your first business, you've actually not had this experience. So what would your advice be for those who are at the cusp of, they can see the potential for their business to grow, but they're still figuring out what, whether they should take, or maybe still kind of deciding the capital? What would your advice be?
I would think that, first of all, it's really to know what your end goal is, because if that's not clear in your mind, where you want to get to, at which point also you want to get to where that is, it's very difficult for you to decide on taking on a loan, because I won't sugarcoat it. It is really a risk. It's something that you must be prepared for. But of course, every business and every person have their own, journey, but definitely I would say that you must be ready for whatever comes your way when you take on this loan. But when you have that goal in mind and that it's very clear to you, I believe that's already the very biggest, maybe 60% or maybe 70% even of the decision making of go ahead, take that financing. You need it, and we women need all the help we can get, and also make sure that whatever loan that you get, don't be tempted to spend it anywhere else. Make sure that that is for your business. Being a mom, being a wife, there are many things, there are many challenges, and I know I speak for a lot of women that it's so tempting to, I'll just use this a bit for, to finance something, to pay for something. Don't, because you might find yourself in a very difficult position someday if that happens. So you have to be at the point in time that you're very sure that the money you're going to use is really for where you want to be at a certain point in time. Yeah.
Very important point. Thanks. There's a question for you, Jeannie, from one of our audience members on Facebook. What else can you spoke, I think, a little bit about community and the importance of that, and having your support system. So what can the community itself do more to support women entrepreneurs like you? We're all part of this. I think in the Nusha Network, we have more than, I think now 600 women entrepreneurs as part of the network working across the region. So what can the community and what can we do for each other more?
I think maybe, first of all, more information campaign, because I think there's a lot of women who just really need this, but they just don't know where to access. They don't know where to get the financing. So perhaps a more aggressive information campaign, or maybe more meetups, because now that, the world is opening up again, because it's really different to do it face to face rather than just online all the time. You don't know if you're getting through to people. So I think face to face seminars, simple seminars, like maybe how to access the finance, how to use the money, how to what are the formal paperworks that you need to do as a woman entrepreneur, anything that will really help educate women like me, because I belong to different communities, and especially government communities that help micro MSMEs like myself. And there's a lot, maybe 95%, they don't know where to access the finance. They're always just so scared. So maybe, yeah, tying up with these kinds of groups as well, perhaps. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, and I think I'm glad that you did mention that. Definitely did surface as one of the biggest barriers is really actually you don't know where to access it and who to get it from. So one of our efforts is really to create a funder map. But I think you made an important point of the intersectionality of different communities, right? We need to get this information out there because not everyone is, of course, here in our community, but also collaborating across different groups to really just get this information out there. Everybody needs to know that inBEST exists, and other funders and partners and different forms of financing options that are available, because even though we may have limited options, even those are not widely known. And it also, one of the issues of information is also the asymmetry, is that it trickles through different networks. So you are limited only by maybe your circle or your echo chamber of what you see on Facebook or Instagram, right? So very critical point. I know we're coming to the last few minutes. So Dave, I just wanted to ask you a final quick question on, many times we are seeing sort of investors and entrepreneurs being sort of posed on different sides, on opposing sides. And, it is because it's not still the norm for businesses to be raising external capital. So it does seem like investors are on some other parallel track and entrepreneurs are. So what, anything to our community of investors and ecosystem players of bridging this gap, and what can we do better? Any learnings from what you've done so far?
So I think speaking on the investor perspective, I think usually what is done is that investors create the product, and then they hope and pray that the entrepreneurs will then fit the product that they've made to prove the investment thesis that they've created, right? That this is what the women entrepreneurs need, even before going out to market. So I think, to fellow investors, I would say, I think, start with a product, but be willing to customize it as you see the need of the investees that you have, and have the capacity and the flexibility to understand the circumstance that they're going through, right? And I think to follow up to that, I think I've always been an advocate of having the women entrepreneurs dictate what success is for them, and then supporting and fueling that definition that they have for success. Not, us telling them, oh, you need to be the next biggest, brightest, next giant mogul in the Philippines in your industry, right? Maybe that's not what they want to do. Maybe they just want to build a company that's able to help them juggle all of their responsibilities, right? That they have enough free time, that when they have free time, they handle the business, but then, they're doing childcare, parent care, taking care of grandparents, the community, school, all of these other things. And maybe that's okay. That is, creating a business that's able to sustain all of that is enough, right? And we should be comfortable to say, okay, we will support that because that is what success is for them, and not labeling it as, what we see their success is supposed to be. And, in terms of customization, I think what's also important is, setting aside a budget for, let's say, wrap-around services, technical assistance, because being in this industry, I think, as mentioned, the community needs, the information drive, this knowledge transfer that needs to happen. And if you can already set aside a budget for that, specifically for that purpose, right? Whether it's your current investees and you continuously educate them on how to use different types of financing, whether it's within your own capability or outside, which we should be comfortable with, or allowing them to utilize that technical assistance for things that they think add value to their business, right? Whether, it's not your traditional, oh, I'm going to use it for legal structuring and business development and all those other things. Maybe what they need is, a life coach, or maybe what they need is to be able to hire a nanny so that they can help balance everything out, right? So I think it's getting to that level of understanding and being able to provide that, while supporting their definition of success. I think if we are able to do that, then we are one step closer to supporting women entrepreneurs where they want to be in the particular journey that they are.
I feel like, Dave, you've articulated and explained our mission statement, which is to help women entrepreneurs succeed on their own terms. Thank you so much. I think that's very, very important points, because there is a tendency, I think, especially in the startup ecosystem, to define success in a very specific way. And unfortunately, since that, especially sort of the venture capital, the hockey stick growth stories tend to dominate narratives. Many times, many different shapes and sizes of women-led businesses don't fit into that narrative, and then hence are not seen as success. And I think you made a very important point around helping, and empowering the women to figure out what success is really for them, and supporting that and getting comfortable with that, which I thought was very, very important, because many times for us also, it's kind of, entering a new kind of space to figure out that, okay, this is what success looks like for this business, which may be just a healthy, profitable company, but staying small, as opposed to something else. So I think really beautiful messages. Thank you to you, Jeannie, and to David for your candid insights. I hope our audience, all of you, found it really helpful as well. I really enjoyed listening to you. And I think you've sort of really given a lot of color and stories to what research has really surfaced in the last few months. Thank you for your time, and please do check out the amazing range of food and snacks from JustGoLowCarb. And for anybody who does not know inBEST Ventures yet, I hope you got to understand what they do. All the links have been shared in the chat, but you can also find both Jeannie and Dave on LinkedIn and other social media. So please do reach out to them. And for us at the New Shoe Network and our work as Will Grow Philippines, we continue to pursue this ideal that we want to help women entrepreneurs succeed on their own terms. And do join us for our other events as well. But thank you so much for your time today, and have a great rest of the week, everybody. Thanks, Jeannie. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Thanks,
Good night,
guys.
everyone. Thank you.